What's up, guys? My name is TaiZen. Welcome to the cryptocurrency.market channel. This is a trading, investing, and entrepreneurship. You know, we like to share the things that's happening out in the real world, not the stuff that happens in fantasy land that sounds really good, and then when you go out there, you get knocked in the head because that's not how it really works in the real world. Okay. So speaking of real world, we are broadcasting here from a massive, farmers market here in Ho Chi Minh City in District 4 out of Vietnam. I have an awesome guest here with me, Dominic Wiles. Say hello, Dominic.
Hello, hello.
Right? Dominic relocated from Germany here to do business here and start up a blockchain company here in Ho Chi Minh City. And I came back to Vietnam and I'm doing business here in Vietnam also. You've had to hire staff here in Asia. I've had to hire staff here. And there's some interesting things that we ran into that we did not anticipate. So I thought we'd make this video for any of you guys that are looking to set up business and do any type of entrepreneurship in Southeast Asia here, right? So let's start by just for the people that don't know you, just a quick summary of your background. You know, how you ended up from Germany, how you ended up here in Ho Chi Minh City.
Yeah, so born and raised in Frankfurt, mainland Europe's capital of finance. After 30 years then relocated here to Ho Chi Minh City in 2014, so now almost 6 years ago. Started here the very first Bitcoin exchange in the country at the time in 2014, which is still operating and running. And we chose the place because compared to Germany, it provides more economic opportunities. Mm-hmm. It's much more entrepreneurial friendly country, but it also comes with quite a bunch of more risks compared to operating in these more developed markets.
Yeah. Before we talk about the risk, Dominic, I forgot to ask you also, because I know like a lot of times when I was living in America and a lot of my Western friends and we always wonder like, hey, what are these white guys, what are these Western guys from the Western countries doing in the undeveloped or the emerging markets over in Southeast Asia? So why Vietnam?
The weather is good.
Yeah. I mean, did you have spouse, family members? Or,
yes, so I'm married here now. We had basically at the time then like also 5-6 years ago to make the decision, where do we go? Because she was still living here, I was living over there.
So your wife is Vietnamese?
Yes.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, back at the time was also when we just started off the business kind of, and we made the decision, okay, if we just look at the trajectories of the countries, of the region, Asia is the place to be in the 21st century. That's going to be like the center of economic opportunity and development in the 21st century, while Europe has its struggles, and I don't see it getting much better anytime soon over there.
Okay. So obviously, you and I have had to go through a lot of headaches, heartaches, and painful mistakes and financial mistakes here in doing business here in Southeast Asia, right? Why don't we start with you first? Like, what was like one of the biggest blunders or mistakes or things that you encountered here that looking back, that if you didn't make that mistake, you'd be a lot further ahead now? And then after you share that, I'll share mine. And then this is unscripted, guys. We're just two guys, two entrepreneurs just talking here about entrepreneurship in Southeast Asia and the problems we ran into and how we are overcoming it. So you want to start first?
Yeah, I mean, I have been visiting Vietnam a couple of times before, so it's not like I come to some place which I completely didn't have any idea about. I was traveling the country almost 5 years before I actually moved
Can
here.
you kind of scoot back a little bit just for the camera?
So I kind of knew what I was getting into, and that's very different. But of course, running a business in practice is then, of course, always then a different matter than just kind of looking from the outside how things work. One of the biggest mistakes, and I think you also have kind of run into this, is the business behavior here is very different. People are thinking more short-term oriented, which results in not necessarily optimal results. It's not like the business ethics you would expect if you deal with a reputable partner in the West. And because that's a more common standard here, you start comparing to doing business in the West, lowering somehow your standards. You kind of get numbed down and get used to it, and that's a bit mistake. what we should have been doing from the beginning is really keeping our standards on the high level, because there are also some good people around here, but it's a much smaller fraction and it's not like the usual way most people operate here. But what we have learned there, I mean, lowering your standards never worked out. So you always have then the headache, you waste your time.
So you go ahead and share an example of you lowering standards, and I'll share an example of me lowering standards, just so that the viewers can understand. Just one easy example.
I mean, one of these examples is just like when your employees, maybe your staff ask for something, which normally in the West would give you then already like warning signals like, hey, something is not really right with them. Here you sometimes then go along with it, and that's a mistake, because I mean in the West, like giving and taking is a thing. So you give people something, at some point they give something. But here it's more seen or perceived, not necessarily even consciously, as a sign of weakness. Like, okay, I can squeeze out more of this guy, so let's see how far can I push it.
Yeah.
So it gets more and more and more.
Yeah.
You have to set the boundaries straight away.
Yeah, in other words, if you don't tolerate that in the West, there's no reason to tolerate that in the East. Okay.
Yes.
So I'll share my example. So I have one employee who I hired, and we agreed to, X per amount, salary per month. And this employee went and did a bunch of extra stuff. We agreed to, pay this much for this amount of work, and they went and did 3 times the amount of work. And I told them that, hey, our budget is to pay this much each month. And they went, and their friends went and did a bunch of work, and they got 3 months worth of work done in like a couple of weeks. And they asked me to pay them for the 3 months worth of work. And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? Like, I originally hired you. I didn't hire you and all your friends. So it's like, why are you expecting me to pay this 3 months worth of work? And I made the mistake because it was Vietnamese New Year, and I thought, well, they did do the work, but I just don't want, to be seen as the bad guy or something. They did the work and I didn't pay them, So I paid them the 3 months, and I told them not to do that again. But the very couple weeks later, they did the exact same thing again. So, so that I would say, I think it would be safe to say that when things like this happen out of the ordinary, I think it's better to just say no the first time, so it doesn't happen again the second time. Because, like you said, if you allow it to happen the first time, for some reason the mentality here is that they don't see it as trying to get over on you or trying to rip you off or anything like that. They feel like, hey, if I can do it, get this out of you one time, well, why not try it again and see if I can get a little bit more, right? So there's not that obvious give and take like you say in Asia.
It's not even that it's perceived like you would in the West, that it's kind of unjust behavior or that they feel bad about it. It's just like more kind of survival strategy here.
Yeah.
To just take whatever you can get there.
Yeah. And when we talk about short-term thinking here, it's not just short-term thinking. It's like extremely short-term thinking. And I think this example that I think is very funny is that, like the software, like for example, like the software, because you hire a lot of software engineers, we hire a lot of software engineers also. Like the software engineers here can sign an agreement to come work for you on Monday, like next Monday, like today is Friday or Saturday, and they'll come there and start work on Monday. And during the weekend, if they find a place that pays them an extra $10 or $50 more or $100 more, they will literally cancel and not uphold the agreement or the contract that you have just signed with them today.
Yes.
And they're supposed to show up for work 2 days later.
Yes.
They will actually cancel that, and they have no problem with that because, and you and I, coming from the West, would think like, hey, that's very unethical, or that's very immoral, or that's very unmanly or ungentlemanlike to do that. But over here, there's this short-term mentality that's okay. I mean, this place is over here, it's paying me $50 more, so I don't see why I gotta stay with you when, and you might say, hey man, I'm signing the agreement with you today to work on Monday, but it really doesn't matter.
Yes.
You know.
So reputation as a currency is still not really perceived here much as something valuable by most people.
Yeah.
Which in turn also provides opportunities, because if you are then one of the few guys who recognizes that your reputation long-term matters, and you are only one of the few guys who is standing out there,
then everybody crowds to you.
You build this mode while like all the people operating just like more in these short-term thinking time frames. I mean, they are not the ones which are teaming up then with other long-term thinkers, companies from the West who are looking to enter the market here in Vietnam.
Yeah. So another thing too is that I'll share my one of the things that happened to me in my business, right? Is we hired some software engineers and we agreed to pay them X amount salary per month, and we also offered them as a bonus to incentivize them to build the software more quickly and to stick with us and be part of our team, right? We offer them a percentage of sales, which that's not something that's common, right? And so at first they did not think that we actually knew how to trade and make money from trading, because all their other friends that claimed that they were traders, cryptocurrency traders here in Asia, they did not see any of them making money. So as we were working with them building our software, our trading software, and they saw that the real world numbers of how much money we were making from our trading, they decided that they would hold our software hostage and just decided to keep it and not give it to us and give us the source code. And they said that the reason why they're not giving us is we need to make them a business partner. And I'm like, I didn't hire you to become my business partner, If you do and provide value to our business, I'll be happy to have you as a business partner. But you haven't shown any value yet. You built some software that, using strategies that we invented it and that we trademarked and that we copyrighted and everything. And now, just because you wrote the code for it does not mean that you are part owner of our company, And there's this mentality that, hey, I worked hard on this software, and so they just don't have this value creating mindset. They have more of a extracting. And I just want to make this clear, guys, that this is not like everyone. Like Dominic says, there are a minority that do understand, good reputation, good credit, good business practices, right? Even if they have never been in the West, right? So you just got to be patient to find those people,
Yes, and you need to keep your bar high when it comes to who you are going to work with. You can't get numbed down to ignore these red flags, because the red flags are there.
Yeah.
It's just that being in Vietnam sometimes.
Yeah, I think that the mistake that we made, was that we assumed that like you said, we know what the best business practices are, right? But I think that the mistake we all made was that, and it's just not me and you, but other blockchain companies here in Vietnam, I think that the mistake that we all made was that we assumed that, this is an emerging market, so it's okay. But the reality is, it's not okay.
Nope.
Yeah. So the first time it happens, looking back, the first time that these red flags or these clues that show up that this is not a person that I want to do business with, I think that it's safe to say that we should have just cut them off right there.
Yes.
And just take that small loss with it and then be done.
It never has worked out well with people who don't hold up to your standards. To compromise on this, it doesn't work out. It costs you just your time, resources, it costs a lot of headache. And I mean, for example, one of the funnier cases we had recently here in our company is like, now former employee of us was doing her own thing at the time during working at the company, when we found out somehow that he was using company resources to do her own things, because we started interviewing some of the staff which were working with her, like, hey, your performance last month hasn't been good, what have you been working on? And like, oh, I've been working on this and this. Like, that's not part of what our company is doing. So we had to let her go, and then basically starting off a new company and claiming basically now the new company is the old company and trying to sell this to people. So I mean, it's like,
So trying to steal your brand and your track record and your performance here in Vietnam.
Yes, so also like not putting in the work over the long term, just saying, oh, this guy's built up a good reputation, let's just take it.
Yeah.
And it's like, you get fired from Google, you start a new company,
you're not Google.
And then you're trying to raise money by saying like, hey, we are actually Google, we just rebranded this year, and please give me money now. So in the West, they would send you to an insane asylum, and here it's like, kind of normal behavior, so it's like...
And over here I noticed something else too, is that some of the blockchain businesses and companies here, not only will they steal another company's brand and history and reputation, but I also noticed this too, is that like if you look at their team members page, they'll often put Caucasian guys or white guys on there, right? So I've learned something, you know, like every time I see it, especially, I would trust it more if it was just an all Asian team, but if they stick some, you know, Caucasian or white or American or European faces on there, I really have to check, because I've looked at some of these team member pages before where I see a white guy on there and I do a quick background check, you know, and I find out, one, that guy doesn't even exist, that person doesn't even exist, or if that person does exist, they have nothing to do with the blockchain or the crypto or the Bitcoin space, like absolutely nothing. They might be like in finances, in the financial world, but they have nothing to do. Like, you've been around in crypto since 2012, 2013, so have I. You know, both our teams have both pretty much got into crypto at about the same time, back in 2012 and 2013. And like you said in one of our other videos, that we pretty much know all the original, like the key players from 2012 all the way to like 2016, before the big bull market in 2017, when a lot of the fake players or a lot of the new players start coming in. So it always cracks me up when some of these Asian blockchain companies post pictures of white people on there that say that they've been in blockchain for this long, and I know for a fact they haven't, because I pretty much memorized all the key players, and you have too, from the early days, you know. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy for us to spot it out because we have all the connections, and when somebody claims, oh, this person has been doing a lot of community work here and there, even if we ourselves don't have the connection, normally there's like 1 degree of separation. You just, okay, in this and this town, this and this person was supposed to do something. I know this guy from this town. Let me ask the guy if he has ever heard of this person. And most of the time it turns out it doesn't. And as you say, like putting up like these white faces here is a typical kind of scam tactic here. I mean, all these Ponzi schemes which are coming to town here regularly, you always see they hire some white face, put him in a nice suit, put him on stage, pumping up people, and somehow the unsophisticated investors here still trust this, or if they see it on a website, they don't know how to do due diligence. I mean, just typing the name in Google, or if it's a name which really exists, like there were so many ICOs which said, oh, Vitalik Buterin is on our team. I had it happening with me that my name appeared on pages I have nothing to do with. But they don't go to just simply check out like, this guy has his social media page here, there's nothing written about this, so maybe I shouldn't trust this information from this shady company over here.
Well, what I've learned as part of my due diligence process, right, is I try to get references from people I know. So the reason why you and I met was because you knew Tone Vase and I knew Tone Vase, and when I asked Tone, I said, hey, I'm relocating back to Vietnam. Do you know anybody that's in the Bitcoin space from the early days, from 2012, 2013, 2014? And he said, yeah, you should go talk to Dominic, you know, and that's how we met. But then you had a reference from Tone Vase and I had a reference from Tone Vase, and that's how we connected. And I would think it's safe to say that before doing business with anybody in Vietnam or Asia, it would probably be a good idea to get a reference from somebody that's well known from the early days. And I think that even if you don't, let's say that somebody didn't know Tone Vase, to get a reference about us, I think that it's also good just to see if you can contact that person in real life. Like, can you get that person, like if there's 5 people on the team members page, I think it's safe to say, hey, see if you can get each one of those people on Skype and actually talk to the real person. Because I've noticed something, like sometimes they'll put a white person's face on there and then, man, you search on the internet for like 3 or 4 days, and you still don't find any information about them. Because like if I wanted to get a hold of you and I didn't know you through Tone Vase, I can easily Google your name, or you can easily Google my name, and it pretty much shows up on the first search results page. And there's plenty of contact info, social media contacts where people can reach out to us.
All the history, what we have been doing over the years, so
Yeah.
people can really follow, okay, this guy has been around since a while.
So that's I would think that's one due diligence process, that just to be on the safe side so that you guys don't get ripped off or scammed, or have broken agreements and contracts with somebody in Asia, is just see if you can get them on Skype in person, or see if you can get a hold of them and meet them in person, right? If they say they're from Germany and you happen to live in Europe before you come here, see if you can meet that person in person before you do business with them in Asia, And talk about, let's talk about hiring, the talent pool here. What's your experience with the talent pool, the salaries, and things like that?
I mean, depends, of course, on the position the people are working in, if they're working customer service, if they're developers. Also there, you need to run a pretty tight ship.
Yeah.
Because if you give too much room, very often it's going to be exploited. I mean, there's a bunch of people who can work self-responsible.
Yeah.
But it's a small minority, and it takes you a lot of time to find these good people.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I don't want people to think that everyone here is bad in Vietnam. The minority, that the people that you do find that are quality, they are actually very probably
very decent people.
Yeah, this is probably I know you would probably agree on this, that you're probably not going to find any harder working people than the Vietnamese people. I mean, they are hard working.
Definitely much harder working than like in the West. This is something which a lot of people in the West also don't understand, how hard here people in Asia generally are working. That's one of the reasons why the economic center of the world is shifting over here.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, even if I need to get something done at 10 p.m. on Sunday night, there is somebody out there who is willing to provide me the service if I pay him for it.
Yeah. Like, I know this is going to sound crazy to you guys, but if we took our staff and our employees and we went out to this farmer's market and bought some food to eat for lunch or something, and we had no table to sit, we can literally sit on the ground right here and eat, and they would not bitch and complain about it. When you say that, and the people that you do find that are quality, that are hardworking, I mean, they work really hard.
Yes.
So I want to put that out there, that if you take the time and find the right people, it's very much worth keeping. And what I've learned to do is that whenever I find the employees that are worth keeping, I try to do whatever I can to keep them so that they stay loyal to us.
Yes.
So
long-term relationships with the people who are really on the standard, I think that's kind of the key for success also here. So really want to get you a few key players, work with them over several years.
Yeah.
Also, having these people in the team, they can help you to find other people who operate on these standards. So that's
the referrals are a lot better.
Yes. Because I mean, coming from the outside, of course, it's kind of limited to what I have, like access to the local talent pool in a way. So if you have trusted people in the team who kind of operate on your standards, and they know a lot of sources where they can find other people, and they can also vet them and look that they operate on the standards and fulfill the expectations which we have with them. Yeah,
I do agree that if you find one quality staff, that it tends to, their network of staff is also quality.
Yes.
Right? But here's also, on the opposite to that, here's something else that I've learned too, is that if I hire one engineer that's bad, and it doesn't work out, it's pretty much almost safe that I have to get rid of all the people that he referred also.
Yes.
Because there will be repercussions from that.
Yes.
So unfortunately, that
goes both ways.
It goes both ways. Yeah. Like, you find a good quality engineer or staff or employee, you want to hire the people they refer, but if you happen to hire a bad one and you didn't know it, and they've been working for you a while and it's time to let them go, you pretty much have to let go of all the people they referred to. So just that's unfortunate, because once you let that person go, you really cannot trust all the people they referred.
Yes.
Okay.
But ultimately also what we have learned that, I mean, just pushing out the hard decisions also does not pay off. So once you recognize that's not going to work out, the sooner you make the cut, the better, because otherwise the more you drag it out, the more it's draining your resources, your time, attention and everything. So the sooner you cut it, the sooner you can refocus and try to get, use your time productively, get the right people in.
Yeah, the other, so for example, right, like if, I would say that if you had to hire 3, 4, or 5 engineers in the West before you find one that's good, I would say that you might have to do that 8, 9, 10 times, maybe double the amount of volume before you find the good one. So it's probably just better that if, as soon as there's signs or signals that this is not the right engineer or the right employer, the right staff, just the sooner that you let them go, right? Yes. And I would say that to just go on a probationary period, where I found out that really helps is, you know, show me your work or show me your, because the ones that actually know what they're doing or can do what they say they can do, usually they have a body of work already. If they're software engineers, let me see some of your software that you wrote. If they're a writer, let me see some of the stuff that you've written. If you're a video blogger, if you're hiring them for video editing purposes or anything, let me see some of the work you've done. So I think that really helps. You know, talk about let's talk about salaries here, and you can share the European differences, and I'll share the American differences. So the junior software engineers I've noticed in America that just came out of college, you know, just start working their software engineering, their salaries are somewhere between 60 to 60, 70, 80,000 a year. And then the senior software engineers in America make like between 110, 130, 140, 150,000 a year. We're talking about like outside of Silicon Valley. Like in Silicon Valley, the numbers are a lot, you know, they're not normal. So I'm not going to use those. I'm just using like the rest of America. Okay. So over here, I've noticed that like for a junior level engineer, it would be like $400 or $500 a month times 12, so about 6,000 a year. And then for a senior level engineer, it could be 2 to 3 times that. So it could be 12, 15,000 a year.
There's also some which go then 2,000-3,000 range or something if you really want to have experienced people.
Yeah.
I mean, you also really need to think, okay, what do I need? Because if you need experienced developers, you don't want to start out with the junior guys, which might not be able to handle what you ask from them. But generally the staff costs are much lower than in the West, but it also comes at a price, of course, that you need to control the quality tightly.
So I've noticed that compared to American salaries, like a college graduate here will make about somewhere between $400 to $500 to $600 US a month. So that would be the equivalent of, well, let's just say, for example, like if somebody makes $4,000 in America, it's safe to say that that same type of work will cost you about $400 or $500 to $600 a month over here. Now, downside is that there's a, I noticed that, I don't know if you noticed this, but I've noticed that there's a cultural difference that actually ends up costing more. In other words, like on paper, it seems like we're only paying them $500, but then you have to spend extra hours explaining to them how to do things the American way or the Western way or the European way, and that eats up your time that I think that we did not account, that we did not factor in. Like, you know, if I'm making $100,000 a year, then every day my time is worth about $400 a day. If I'm making $4 million a year, I mean $1 million a year, then each day of my life is worth about $4,000. So if I have to train this employee, you know, that I'm paying $400 a month for, but I'm making $100,000 a year, I have to factor in that it's also costing me $400 to sit there for a day or two to train them how to do it the American way or the Western way.
Yes, I agree. I mean, you shouldn't be just attracted by the lower salary rates here, because it also comes at a price. There are trade-offs there. And I mean, as you mentioned, the education level is not that high. Also what we see, like in general, if you compare to the West, it's a lot of people also do software development purely because, okay, they can earn good money compared to some other jobs as clerks somewhere in some shops. So a lot of people don't really have like the passion, while in the West you have much more developers who do it also for a certain passion. They have their side projects which they are running, they contribute to open source and so on. That's not very common at all here. So the people here hone their skills to what is right now demanded by all these outsourcing companies, whatever. We saw it, for example, also in our space. Nobody was really interested like in this blockchain stuff at all. 2017 came around. Then suddenly you had all these blockchain developer courses, which basically was just how do I copy paste an ERC20 token smart contract so they can run these shady ICOs. There was then suddenly some demand, but you don't have really anything out here like people just contributing to the Bitcoin source code out of passion because they don't get paid for it. So why should I spend my time on it? And that's also again this long-term thinking, because if you contribute to open source projects, hone your skills, understand really on a fundamental level, you stand out.
You not only do you learn the blockchain skills, but you also get recognized as one of the contributors to the blockchain, the Bitcoin code or the Ethereum code or something like that. And you're right. And one of the things that we have learned is that we always ask for, what have you done outside of, like if we're hiring a software engineer, hey, what have you done outside of working for these companies? Like, have you done anything on your own? Because like in the West, like if somebody is a welder, on the side, they're tinkering, they're doing some kind of welding project, building a new motorcycle, building a new car. They're doing something that you can see that this guy is very passionate about welding. Like if he's a woodworker, a carpenter or something, you'll see him building a small stool or something that's really nice and fancy just for himself or his friends. And that's, you're right. I do notice that too, is that if you hire someone over here, sometimes they learn that skill because it happens to be the highest paying skill or the in-demand skill at the moment, but really they're not really passionate about it. And sometimes you and I know that the people who are really passionate and they really take the time to learn it, sometimes those are the people that have the real skills.
Without the passion, I don't believe you can become like a really master of your craft. You need to have this passion. You need to be proud of the work you're doing. I mean, if you only go there, okay, I have to do this job from 9 to 5 and just kind of put in the least effort possible somehow to make this somehow work, it's not going to be good. It's going to be average at best, but you don't have outstanding work results. While if you are somebody who's really passionate, writing good software in this case, that's also when you get really good results, because the people take pride in their work.
I want to share this example with the audience about one of the guys that you hired one time, that one of the videographers for one of your events that I spoke at. One thing that I noticed was he was very passionate about videography, and when he was doing the motion footage, right? I mean, he had the steady cam, and where you were walking or I was walking or whoever other speakers were walking, I mean, this guy was like, it seemed like he was making the Lord of the Rings or the next Avatar movie or something. You can really tell that this guy was like, that there was no doubt in anyone's mind that this guy was really passionate about his cinematography, right? And I think that's the kind of people that you want to look for. The people that are actually really passionate about it. Where if they're a photographer, let me see some of your work. If you're a videographer, let me see some of your work. If you're a coder or an engineer, let me see some of your work. I've noticed that, back just really quick on that the salary note, I think it's safe to say for the people that are coming from America, like Canada and stuff, I think it's safe to say that when you hire people over here, it's safe to say that it's about 1/8 of the cost of the American or the Canadian salaries for whatever that role is. So if you're hiring a videographer, a film editor, or a video editor, or a transcriber, or a engineer, whatever, it's safe to say it's somewhere around 1/8 of the Western salary. But you have to add in the time that it takes you, because no matter what they say, they do not understand Western culture. So you might have them say, hey, I want the video edited this way so that it makes sense to an American audience. And it's not that they don't want to do it the way you do it, but it's also very important because we come from an academic intelligence culture here in Asia, it's extremely important that the employees show you how intelligent and how educated they are. So even though you might want it done like according to this method over here, like the American way or the Western way, they still think this is the better way to do it. Even though you tell them, hey, don't do it like that, do it like this, in their minds, to show how educated and intelligent they are, right? They do it their way anyway, even though you ask them to do it this way.
Yes.
So just be aware of that, guys. And it's not because they're doing it out of malicious. I don't believe that they're doing it out of malice. I think that they just do it because they think it's a better way.
Yes.
And they just don't understand the Western culture. So when you ask them to do it, like for example, just something as simple as this, right? In our trading software, we hire our engineers and we said, hey, get the math to do step 1, and then do step 2, and then do step 3, and then do step 4. And what they'll do is they'll combine these two. And for the life of us, we couldn't figure out why the math was not correct. And then it took days and days, and we told them over and over, do not combine any of these steps. Okay, because it's important, because it's going to mess up our trading formulas and everything if you add the steps together. Do each one of them sequentially, in order, separately. Okay, and it was a while before we realized, hey man, they thought it was more efficient if you combine these two logic statements together, or these two math formulas together, so the computer does it all at once instead of doing 2 separate steps and waste time. They thought it was better to do that, even though we told them over and over, do not combine any of these logic statements or these math steps. They did it anyway because they thought it was better. And we wasted like, I don't know, a week or 2 just to find that one bug. Because when we did the math by hand, it came out to this answer, but when they ran it with the software, it was off just enough for us to spot. Like if you're not a trader, you would not know that it was off. But for us, like we had enough experience where we say, hey, this is off, this is not right, because that little bit that's off, it can hurt us tremendously in the profits or the losses when the time comes, you know. And they couldn't see that. It's like, hey, this is more efficient, but I didn't ask you to make it more efficient. I asked you to do it in these steps so I can make sure that the math is correct. So that's going to happen, you know. What else have you observed? We're working that the Western blockchain companies need to be aware of.
Well, I mean, generally be cautious what partners you're working with. I mean, if you come here waving around money and so on, there's always people, of course, happy to take it.
Yeah.
But it's also the fastest way to lose your money.
Yeah.
And don't get much of the results you hope for. So
yeah.
Do thorough vetting of the partners you're working with. And as you said before, I mean, best way to do it is find trusted people who can vouch for other trusted people, like you did it when you came to Vietnam here.
Yeah.
Because they usually then also build up over time their network of trusted people. So that's the better way to enter, because there's a lot of people who promise you a lot, not so much is coming out at the end.
Yeah.
So
let's
one of the major advices, if you want to don't crash and burn right at the start.
Yeah. One of the last things that I want to talk about, because I think we have to return these chairs and the table back to the street vendor here, because she's packing up, and it's almost nap time here in Vietnam between 11 and 1 o'clock. So we got to be aware of that, you know. Okay, okay. So one of the things that it's their nap time, so they gotta wrap up the chairs and tables here that we're using. That's something else that I think I'm glad they said that, so now we can remind. So there's a mandatory nap time between 11 and 1 o'clock.
Yes.
Yeah, and you have to do that for all your employees and your staff, and if you have an office, and even the street vendors. You know, they celebrate nap time.
People just sleep in the office.
Yeah,
that's
also, yeah, and it's common for people to just take a nap and sleep in your office. So don't freak out when you see that happens. Okay, in government offices and things too like that. Like we went to a museum here, and everybody just plastered out on the museum benches and the seats and everything on the floor. So just be aware of that, guys. Let's wrap this up with, let's talk about the financial laws, Western financial laws, and how people interact with it, how they understand it, how they deal with it, or how they don't understand it, or the value of it here.
Yeah, I mean, the financial regulations, you of course have also financial regulations here in Vietnam. At the moment, the crypto space is not that regulated. But compared to like the Western world, like US, Europe, very restricted and everything, while in Vietnam it's still much more kind of almost anything goes. I mean, if you see the people here walking into the bank branch with $500,000 worth in cash, basically just okay, deposit this here and
Yeah.
there. I mean, in the West, you
It's
can't
common.
do this.
Yeah.
While here,
Yeah.
it's pretty much common. Still very
Yeah.
cash-based society.
Yeah, it's still, they trust the cashier, guys, and I'm glad you brought that up. If you walk into a bank or you see people walking out of the bank with $100,000 worth of the Vietnamese dong or $1 million worth of Vietnamese dong, guys, that's not, like, don't find that strange, because that happens quite often. I've seen that happen, like, this old ladies walk out with a big old bag full of cash, and I'm like, man, she's carrying like several hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's not a big deal, you know. Here's something else too, guys, that I've noticed here is that the Western financial securities laws and the know your customer, anti-money laundering laws that's in the West, you can just kiss that goodbye here, guys, because no matter how much you try to explain it to people here, that's like speaking a foreign language to them. Okay, they just don't get that. Like if you say that, hey, we cannot say that on our channel, or we cannot do that, that means nothing to them, because it's so foreign to them that even when I find that when I try to explain it to the people here, they don't even, it doesn't even go into their head, because that's like, for example, like the idea of an accredited investor, where, you know, in America I have to be a millionaire in order to give you money to buy shares in your company. You know, if you have a securities offering, or I have to make a $200,000 a year salary for 2 years in a row to qualify as an accredited investor before I can buy shares in your securities offering, right? To them, that is so foreign that when you tell them that, hey, the government has to accredit you, or you have to be a millionaire in order to give this person money, right? They think that is so stupid and it's so retarded, right? That doesn't even register. It doesn't even register.
Gets ignored, yeah.
You know, so just don't waste your time with KYC, AML laws and trying to explain to the people here, guys. Whatever you need to do in your business to comply with KYC, AML, and securities laws, you just make sure that they do it. But I would not waste too much time trying to explain to them, because that is so important to them.
I mean, even as a crypto exchange, we also to a degree have to do it to protect ourselves, because we had cases of like dirty money flowing in, and I mean, police comes knocking on your door and they're like, hey, what's going on here? I mean, even if you have all these processes in place, like, hey, give us your ID and selfie picture and whatever, it's pretty common here, unfortunately, that people just sell their identities, and okay, now they require also the selfie and so on. And they just ask the people who sell their identity, okay, please take the selfie for me and write this and that. So you put all these extra steps, and they just get the people, okay, I pay you $10 more, please.
And you know what's funny is that they don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, they don't think there's anything wrong.
Hey, oh, so this is what I got to do. Okay, I'll just Photoshop it or do whatever I got to do to qualify. So just be aware of that, guys.
Yeah. Right? So I mean, even if you do your best efforts there, I mean, at some point you need to stop ramping it up, because then you only have the scammers, because all your legit customers think like, hey, I don't want to go to 50 hoops through putting some money into the exchange, while then the scammers, they pay just the victims just to push the money through your exchange.
So the concept of making people go through all these KYC and AML hoops, you know, to give you money is an extremely, like, foreign and weird and strange concept to the community here, guys. So I hope that some of our business entrepreneurship experience saves you guys money, headache, and a lot of the big mistakes that we've made. You know, if you guys like what we shared here, or have questions about how to do business here in Southeast Asia, and especially in Vietnam, just leave it in the comments below. What's the best way for people to contact you or follow you?
Possibly on Twitter, I guess, for the international audience. I know in Vietnam, Facebook is still popular. I have also a page up there for the Vietnamese
send me those
people.
links and I'll put it in the bottom of this video. Okay. And if you guys want to follow me, you can do it on Twitter at TaiZen. And thanks for joining us here in District 4 in Ho Chi Minh City in southern Vietnam, in Southeast Asia. And we'll look forward to seeing you guys in a future video. Thank you. And thanks, buddy. All right.